our needs health-wise. We are not integrating health education as a policy, a fundamental policy of development. We are ignoring the very basic fact that we are dying in our droves. We are dying in a very serious issue that can be simplified by accessing medication. And we're not talking about it as leaders. We go about it in a circumventing nature. You know, we don't want to talk about sex. We don't want to talk about HIV, which I tend to think is eroding the very fabric of our community. We must be careful when we talk about politics, because there will be no politics without people. And the economics of scale tell us that right now in Kenya, we are losing more than we are gaining in terms of education. So let us put that as something on the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Adiwa. And then,
my name is Anthony Adiwa. I've been here for about 14 years. Well, on the issues, on the issues that you've been raising up, I thought of trying to relate this insecurity with the economic situation that we have at home. I mean, I think that people feel insecure at home has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of people do not have access to the resources that we have, or we do not have a proper institution of distributing the resources that we have at home. So I think that if we could find a proper means of availing the resources that we have.
Because we don't have the resources, is it a lack of resources which make us, it's a complex issue. And I'll come back to that. But I wanted to link it with what the brother said about why are we sometimes our own worst enemies. I guess part of it is how we have to look at our history. Let's look at the history of the slave trade. In order for those slaves to get on those boats, some Africans had to capture them. In order for you to stay in committee, sometimes it's your uncle who is guarding you. So we have to look at the systems and institutions which pit people against each other. So there's no doubt that a lot of our violence and a lot of our hatred is sometimes turned inwards to ourselves. The Caribbean political activist and psychiatrist Frantz Fanon, when he talked about black skin, white masks, did a lot of work. Many people don't know his political history, but he was somebody who went to live in Algeria, sent by the French government, saw the atrocities, joined the National Liberation Movement.
He went to the rest of the earth.
Yeah. So and so that the whole issue of how people turn their violence. If you look at sometimes even in the, if you go to Madare or Huruma or Chani, you name it, and you find that it's somebody. I'll give you a very concrete story. One of my uncles, I mean, like my father's cousin, he was a physician. He had raised this kid because the family. He managed to go to university, took his brother's kids and lived with him, educated him. And one day he decided his mother was sick, so he went home. Went home, and this same kid brought some neighborhood youth, and they hacked this man to death with an axe, because they wanted to steal his cell phone. Now, where's the logic in that? So what you're saying is something which is happening. But I believe, while those things are very true, let's look at the larger picture. The history of Africa is very well known. Africa is poor because Europe is rich. And we have been recruited in wars, from the slave trade, First World War, Second World War, to even all the wars happening in our own, by forces, and they don't have to be people who look different from us, who don't have our interests at heart. This year there's going to be an election. How many young people are going to go and kill other young people that they don't even know because they've been paid by politician A to do the bidding against politician B? So what I'm just saying is that I don't want to diminish your point. I do know that there's self-hatred and that we have to deal with it. I know that there are issues to do with self-esteem. I know that there are all these other things. But I think it's a whole spectrum. There's a whole there are no simple explanations. And I know that you're raising your hands, but please, you'll intervene in a minute. The issue of schools and families' health education, point well taken. But I have to tell you that at least in Kenya, the opposite is true. Lots of people, HIV/AIDS has now become very mainstreamed in everything, from issues to do with nutrition, primary education, secondary education. Even the churches which used to ban the condoms before have HIV/AIDS programs. And so I'm just saying that more needs to be done, because it is very, very true that, and the point you're making was once made by a Zambian woman who came to Canada to speak to Canadians who are interested in development, said, you guys, you have all these wonderful development programs, but if everybody in the village has died or is dying of HIV/AIDS, who are you going to be working with? So your point is very well taken. But I must say that having worked with, there's a group in Mombasa based in an estate called Khadija Estate in Kisauni, group of women, they call them Husiko Lapwani. And they are all HIV positive women, but they have refused to treat themselves as victims. They have started nutrition programs, they are participating in voluntary counseling and testing, they are giving support to women who have been abandoned by their spouses after they found out about their status, and they're making connections with other women across the country and participating in other initiatives. So I think more needs to be done, but I must say that a lot needs, more can be done, but things are happening on the ground. Issue of NAC Kenya, I'll come to you in 1 minute, please. Yes, I think we have the democratic right to demand that Kibaki should be re-elected. Why not? Why just one term? Why not 4? But you know, at the end of the day, it is the voters who are going to decide that. It could be a wish that I think you have the democratic right to express, but we'll find out at the end of the year. Kenyans will decide. If they like what Kibaki has been doing, they are going to give him another mandate. If they don't like, he's going to go back to there. But I think it's a democratic task which is going to be decided, hopefully, in a democratic fashion. Because as we know, unlike we know that unlike some other countries, it is not a given that people will have free and fair elections, where you can say, I want to vote for Kibaki, and you go there and vote, and your vote counts.